Hi.
You alright, love?
Good.
Welcome, Nina, to First Impressions.
Thanks for having me, Jem.
You've been on my list for so long, but I think I don't think you realise how, and you're gonna want to vomit and throw up me just saying this, but you're such a celebrity in the disability community.
That's all you're getting. It's just a big sigh.
Big sigh. I'll caption that.
I'm not cross with you, Jem. I'm disappointed, is what I am. Um, you're my friend. I'm just, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just awkward. I don't know about these things.
Look, but I think that's what makes you even better. Look, I mean, you, he's so uncomfortable
Just
getting a
swigging,
compliment.
just swig out my massive bottle.
For reference, Nina's having a drink. She's overwhelmed. But I think that's the greatest thing about you is that you just everybody. I've put in my notes. My first impression of you was you're everyone's favorite disabled aunt, whatever you want to say. But you just give us all a cuddle virtually. You tell us that everything's gonna be all right. Everyone's a bit shit sometimes, but let's just help each other out.
You made me do a little cry.
Really?
Little, look, just little. My eyes are wet now, Jem. You've
Oh,
made my
lovely.
eyes wet. Thanks. That's a lovely thing to say. I mean, it's. I speak a lot about how community and finding other disabled people just like changed my life.
Yeah.
And it's just a really lovely space. For as much as I bitch and moan about the internet and all the time, there's just nothing like it. Like just having people who, even if you've got like completely different conditions and whatever else, who just understand what you mean, who
Yeah.
don't kind of like if you say to them, oh, I really hate it when people ask me why I'm in a wheelchair, that they go,
Mm.
yeah, that's shit, as opposed to going, oh, well, people only mean well. Just answer them. They're just being nice. It's like, I don't know. Yeah. Thank you for saying nice things to me. You know, I love you so much.
Oh my God,
So,
stop it.
shut up.
We just cheerlead each other, don't we? And, as someone who hasn't got that many followers, you've never kind of, I don't know, it's a weird internet world where, following is such a big thing, but you never treated me like, oh, Gem's got less than 10K, so I'm
Stop
just
it.
gonna give her one word answers. We voice now. We've elevated the situation. So yeah, anyway, I'll stop I'll stop
You're
singing your praises now.
ridiculous. Thank you very, very much. I'm sure, like, when we first connected on the internet, I only had, like, I don't know, a couple of thousand followers.
No, really?
I think I was big time. Not like now, not like big time Nina Tame.
No,
I don't think
not
I was
like
big time.
viral.
Yeah, not like viral Nina Tame.
To be fair,
Everybody,
you did grow very quickly. From what I remember, it were it quick.
well, I started like talking about this stuff in 2019 around the spring. Was that 5 years ago this spring? Let's work that out. And I think I had about 2,000 followers. So it's been a nice, like steady, but it definitely gathered pace over sort of 2020, like when
Yeah,
Reels first came out. And I had
yeah.
blue hair. Ha, those Reels. Mandy Moore once shared one of my Reels. That was a big day for Nina Tame.
Bloody hell.
Rapunzel herself.
Yeah, but so I'm thinking about how you grew and stuff. How do you manage because obviously you said, it's nice to have the community and, share experiences. But then on the other hand, you've got people that are non-disabled who might ask you questions. They might not have ever even thought about asking someone, a personal question. how do you manage that complete different audience?
So, like, what do you mean? Like, how to like the non-disabled people online or in like real life?
Well, I suppose online, like, because one day you might be saying, God, and it's so annoying when someone does this. And then another day you're like, oh, when you see me, it'd be great if you could do this. So it's almost like two different messages
Mm.
kind of flowing all the time.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's like how I always describe my work is
Mm,
kind of sort of 50% for non-disabled people, kind of like just educating around just don't be a dick to disabled people. Like
yeah.
we're humans, and then like 50% of my work is kind of talking, I suppose, using sort of my counselling skills and just kind of talking to other disabled people and just trying to, for the nervous, anxious, mentally ill babe that I am, I'm very good at, I mean, I've really kind, I'm good at working on myself as well. The older I've got, I think the more I've realized it's something that you manage, and I'll always be like this, but I'm just much better when those parts pop up now. If I get sort of really anxious or really whatever, of sort of talking to myself and taking care of myself through it. But yeah, I think sort of 50% of my work is that, just kind of connecting with other disabled people. And obviously I talk about disabled parenting as well, and parenting a little disabled kid and all of that stuff. But it's just in general, I just don't get, the non-disabled people that follow me, just have really nice sort of chats with, really. I don't really sort of, maybe I'm just really lucky. I don't really sort of get people, too many dickheads, really, which is
Well, that's
nice.
nice.
I'll
Well,
always get like the occasional sort of post that will do well. People write some horrendous shit about me, either like really
uh,
ableist or calling me fat or just whatever it is, like a combination. Um, but they're not part of my community. They're just silly.
yeah, I mean, I get that. I think anyone with any difference, and to be honest, people pick out anyone's features, whoever they are, disabled,
Mm,
non-disabled. I don't know about you, but I think for me, it's like when you're disabled, it's just you get that a lot more about that one particular thing. Whereas for other people, it might be a range of topics, but for
mm.
us, it's like, oh, wheels, 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 wheels. And you're like, yes, wheels, get over it.
I thought, like, I had a video the other day that had like the most plays in any of my videos, and I was a bit confrontational in it. Like, I ended it, it was a very short video, and I ended it by sticking my middle finger up. So, and I got a lot of hate on that, and I was like, well, not excusing it, but I did kind of think, well, I was a little bit confrontational. But then I had a post like recently, literally just talking about not parking on the pavement, and that started off really just nice chats in it. And as it's gained traction over the last 2 days, they've found me. They're just stand up for yourself, or
Oh,
they've found me. And I'm like, really? On this post? I wasn't even being rude on it. So you can just, as you say, exist
yeah.
with a difference. And people on the internet are awful. But also, it's still pretty normalized to take piss out of disabled people.
Oh, yeah.
I lowered the tone then, really, like quite serious and deep. My voice went very deep, but it is like yeah, like it's bad.
Do you know what troll comment pisses me off? It- because it doesn't make scientific sense for me personally. You
Go
know
on.
that this is really niche. You know that Ed Sheeran song, "When Your
Of
Legs Don't
course.
Work Like They Used to Before"? Right. Me, well, number one, my legs aren't paralyzed. Number two, if anything, my legs have got stronger. So if you're gonna try and slate me, my legs actually are working very well.
Be factually correct. It is
Yeah,
annoying when they're not factually correct. It annoys me too.
yeah. Well, I think you posted something today about um you wish you could stand up to show
Oh,
them.
yeah, like I used to, when I started using a chair, I was still ambulatory, so I could still sort of wobble along unsupported and could definitely stand up. And I just, yeah, like whenever I see these comments with people like, oh, you should just walk then, I'm like, oh, I wish you'd made that like 2 years ago when I still could, and then I'd made a funny video about it. Got
Yeah,
loads of likes, loads of
but
dopamine, and I've been really happy. A little internet slut. Anyway,
just know that that would have been really good and really fun. And you don't need to show them, but you know that
I know
that,
my head.
that would have been great. My biggest thing I want to talk to you about, because I just think this is how we connect. This is what we talk about, is disability and dating.
Oh yes.
Ooh. Well, actually, I want to say thank you to you because you were one of, I'd say a handful of people who really helped me in my journey of just number one, talking about it, like accepting that I'm not a dirty person for having dirty thoughts. But like it's such a hard
It's
thing when you're
true. It's
disabled,
yeah.
and you are one person who you not only accept it, but you celebrate it. And I
Mm.
think that's something that there'll be a lot of silent listeners and watchers who will go to you for that. So I hope that you help people just by saying saucy disabled minxes.
Oh,
You know?
Jen,
We
that
don't
makes me
hear it, do we
so
though?
happy. I just like I love sex. There
I'm
we
just
go.
gonna clip that.
There you go. That can be a thing. That can
Yeah.
be a there you go. Um, and the fact that disabled people are just not considered, not only in the conversation, like in the conversation about sex, but we're just not considered as sexual beings. And quite sure not all disabled people are. Everybody's different, just like non-disabled people. Um, the idea that there is only one way to have sex is a load of bullshit. Again, for non-disabled people as well, lots of non-disabled people engage in sex that doesn't necessarily look like, this idea of this penis, vagina, heteronormative idea of sex, which we just know isn't true. And I just think sex can be so fun and so empowering. And I didn't become a wheelchair user till like 4 years ago. I've always been disabled. I've always had huge body hang-ups. And actually, since becoming a wheelchair user, it was like it instantly catapulted me out. It was like I could kind of hide my disability a bit before. So I was still accepted in the, what's considered attractive club. But, you sit in a wheelchair, you're just, that's it. You're not part of whatever it is. And it the same kind of goes for, I'm the heaviest I've ever been, and I love it. Like I'm just like, I'm fat, it's fine, I'm hot, it's great. I was hot when I was skinny, it's all good. All bodies are good bodies. And I did not have that mentality, and I didn't realize that until I started using a wheelchair. And it was like, it's all bloody bullshit. It's just people all the time, every decade, saying this is what's attractive. Big asses are, big lips are, this isn't attractive. This is change, change, change. Let's make loads of money from you. And I just found it really freeing to be like, actually, it's all bullshit. And I think I went on a big waffle, but disabled people should be allowed to feel sexy and empowered and should love their body, or, even sometimes it is hard to love our disabled parts, but to at least feel kind of neutral about them, to not, I know my kind of scars deserve to be touched and loved as much as any other part of my body. Like no part of anyone deserves to be hidden away. Everybody deserves to be touched and loved. And, and it just, yeah, it makes me sad that anybody would kind of think that they're not worthy of being loved, of being touched, of, that they shouldn't be thinking sexy things and all of this stuff. Like it's just nonsense.
It's true. Like, do you, tell me if this is too personal to ask, but was like the conversation ever a thing with Jace about disability, or was it just kind of when things happened, you'd mention it in that moment?
I think so. When I met Jace, I wasn't using any mobility aids, but I was incontinent. I used catheters. I used to wear pads overnight, and I had like quite misshapen feet. missing toes and a big scar on my back. So those were kind of my main things. I wrote a blog at the time, like I met Jason on Twitter, and I wrote a blog at the time that did really well at the time. And he knew about kind of my amputations and stuff, but I hadn't spoke about my bladder online at all. Like, wasn't sort of comfortable with it in the same ways that I am now. So we kind of, yeah, it was never a thing, but it took me a good 3 months maybe to talk to him about my bladder. I sent him this email and it was so long, just unnecessarily long.
An
Like
email about your bladder?
an email. I reread it the other day. It was like a
Oh.
fucking novel. Dear Jason, please allow me to tell you.
I'm not laughing at the bladder bit. I'm just laughing, but it was an email.
The emails I used to send, that poor boy. Like, we used to email. I mean, email was common back then, Jem. I used to email all my love interests. Skype,
Yeah.
lots of emails, Skype, instant messaging, all of that stuff. It was very,
Wow.
very popular. I'm very old. This was in the olden days, the olden times. And he like naturally was just completely fine with it.
Yeah.
And then it was just never, like, I'd had relationships where, like, I remember an ex getting really annoyed. Like, we woke up in the night and I'd wet, and I was trying not to disturb him and change the sheets, and then he did wake up and he was so huffy and grumpy, and I remember feeling
Oh,
really sort of, I'm really sorry, and I felt like a naughty little kid. I felt really ashamed and all of that kind of stuff.
yeah.
And just the right person just wouldn't do that. Like, Jace has never. Jace is like, I'll stay there. I'll sort this out. Like, he's just doesn't bother him. And why would it? It wouldn't bother me if it's the other way around.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's like, I think what I've learned at the ripe old age of 30 is that a relationship or, any kind of dynamic is that you bring stuff and the other person brings stuff.
Mm.
One person's got trauma, another person's got trauma. Like, you're not the only one in that situation bringing anything to the table. You both bring in a lot, and you've
Mm.
both got to negotiate with each other your needs, your wants, your desires. Like, there's so much in there that you've got to help each other with.
Of course there is. I think, it's about just being friends with somebody, and, and hopefully you fancy them. And that's a big bonus. And but my disability, if anything, has just kind of enhanced our relationship. And the more intimate you are with somebody, Jason's seen me at my best, and he's also seen me like I'll tell this story on a podcast. I had COVID before Christmas, so like Jason's seen me in a lot of states. Like, when I was pregnant, I was all strapped up. I was in labour. I was in loads of pain, but I was busting for the loo, and he had to help try and catheterize me. Like, he's seen some things, but I've always drawn the line at shit. I've always been like, look, if I will clean up, like, leave me be. And then I had COVID before Christmas, and I was very, very, very poorly. And I was sat on the toilet, losing my world into the toilet, and I had a washing tub that I was throwing up into. And I thought I was going to pass out. So I thought, I've got to get on the floor. So I managed to get on the floor. I'd locked the door like a knobhead. So I managed to go on the floor, and then about 20 minutes managed to unlock the door, and there was just shit everywhere. And I was just like, Jace. I think I was naked. Like, it was bad, Jem.
Oh, wow.
I felt so vulnerable. And he was practically smug. But he had to help me up, and he knew I couldn't do anything. And he was practically smug that finally this last barrier, this last bit of dignity I put up for myself, gone. So he was pleased. Weirdo.
Oh, God.
But in all seriousness, like, having those moments and having times when just stuff happens, it's just not a big deal.
Yeah.
And like, I feel so comfortable and safe with him. It just makes everything better. I'm not like presenting a version of myself to him.
Yeah. Yeah. And
He
that's
knows.
tiring to do.
It's really tiring. Like, he knows all the different parts of me, even like the horrid, no, they're not horrid actually, but the parts that are more traumatized and present as more difficult.
Yeah.
It's taken a long time. Like, we've been together for 13 years, and I definitely hid parts, and we've definitely grown. Like, it just gets better all the time.
Mm.
But he knows those parts of me now and pretty much knows how to deal with them. And it's nice. And I look at a lot of my disabled friends and the relationships they're in, and they're very sort of similar. They're sort of
Yeah.
similar. I think we describe them as sort of Labrador boyfriends.
Mm.
But they're just, they're nice because there is loads of nice men in the world. There's loads
Yeah.
of, there's also a lot of shitheads, but there is a lot of decent guys, and yeah.
Do you know what I found as well? Like with the guys that I've been with, like for me, I'm really body confident, but there's certain things. So like I've got like my sternum bone is quite prominent. So
Mm.
I've got nice boobs, but also this bone sticks out and I'm really self-conscious of it. But I remember one of the first times I got undressed and like enjoying myself, the person went straight ahead and started kissing that bone. And I was like, how interesting. And ever since then, I've not been like insecure about it because I'm like, maybe difference is sexy.
Well, do you know what? This is family, so not sexy. Um, but one of my kids has the same lump on his back that I do. And when I first saw it, I was so like, it looks so beautiful on him, then surely it must look beautiful on me too. And like that was sort of a big turning point for me. And I will still sometimes just sit absentmindedly, no, just over his t-shirt and just give it a little tickle because it's lovely.
Yeah.
So I can totally see that. And so yeah, Jace was like the first partner who had ever kind of just sort of, who didn't. I used to have partners that would like stroke the top of my back and then stop sort of above where my lump is, and I'd just be like, oh yeah, of course. And Jace never would, and it was just sort of nice. And then I think it was 18 months ago, I had to go back to a spina bifida clinic, and as somebody like born with a disability, I think a lot of people know how you kind of slip off the radar when you become an adult. So it was the first time that I had been examined in that way in years, like probably well over a decade. But it was something that used to happen all the time. So I was in this room and Jace was in there with me, and it was odd. I just kind of went straight back to how I felt as a kid. I kind of zoned out and I sat there, and he was just, poking me on my back, and I just hated it. But then that night when we went home, it's like instinctively Jace kind of knew. We were just sort of having a cuddle in bed, and he just spent ages just like really gently kind of stroking my lump. And it just kind of took me back to, my body is not a medical thing. My body belongs to me. And although growing up disabled, you are medicalized. And I think it's another reason why it can be hard to feel sexy or feel any way, because your first experiences often of being touched is in a medical environment. So it was really nice to be taken to that. And I think, that's something I talk to people about, like even if you're not in a relationship, trying to have that relationship with yourself, like making the effort if there's a part of you that you don't like, buying, I don't know, the nice moisturizer and seeing how it feels to, to spend time on that area, and, looking at it and not necessarily lying, if that's not how you feel, like it's not about lying and being like, oh, I love you, because it won't stick, it will feel weird. But to be like, I deserve not to hate a part of myself, and just to start reclaiming your body back for what that means to you. And I know, and I think there's no coincidence why a lot of us have, tattoos or piercings or bright colored hair or dress, however, because, I think it is this kind of thing of, yeah, just feeling like little oddballs.
That's so true. And like thinking back, the only time people have looked at my body before, in my late 20s, I started dating, was it'd be like a group of people, like
Mm,
students, going, yes, very, very
mm-hmm,
complex. So that was my first kind of impression of, oh, I've got a complex body. Like
mm,
to a child, what does that even mean?
mm.
Wild, isn't it?
It is. And I think you know, my parents, you know, the 80s, 90s, they did the best they could with like the knowledge they had, but they didn't really explain that much to me. So a lot of the time I was kind of just like a silent observer in a room while all the grown-ups spoke about whatever. Um, and I didn't really have like language for my disability, how to talk about it, any of that stuff. I just feel like as an adult, I've had to kind of unlearn and continue to every single day. And it's hard as you get bloody older as well, because you're tired all the time. There's so much learning to do. But it's, you know, I've learned more about everything, not even just disability. Like, and I'm learning continue to in the last kind of 5-6 years, and it's great. It's hard work sometimes.
Do you think that's why we both? I wonder if that's why we do what we do in a way. Like, I know I do sort of whatever content I do, I'm thinking about my past self.
Mm.
As cringy as that sounds.
No, but it doesn't at all. You know, doing stuff for your inner child and, you know, being the grown up that you needed when you were growing up are so important. It's such a lovely way to be able to heal yourself,
Yeah,
because, you know, for me it was kind of about, it was kind of for my kids, because as soon as my kid got old enough and went to school and started dealing with all the questions and everything else, like I'd never been able to give myself permission not to answer, but as soon as he told us that he wasn't happy about constantly being asked questions, I was like, right, well, you don't have to answer then. And that just started like my whole thing of talking about it online, and I've literally been talking about it today in my stories, just like, stop asking disabled people medical questions. And he drives that whole thing for me. And I know rationally it makes no difference. Like, unlikely I'm going to be educating anyone who's going to ever come across, but that still was my starting point, has always been about making the world better for him. And then it kind of just become like, just, yeah, being able to do stuff that, and be the person that I never had. I think if I'd had somebody telling me that it was okay to be disabled, it wasn't a shame, it wasn't a dirty secret, and if I just had somebody kind of cheerleading me in that way,
yeah.
I think I won't be such a mentally ill little baby.
But you say that, but I don't think people on the internet see what you actually feel day to day.
I think I'm very sort of socially anxious, and I think that's just like history with just that horrible time at school and everything else. So I'm not very good with, I feel like everybody looks at me like, oh, she's so confident, and like I'm not. I'm getting better at filming in public, but
Yeah.
it still makes me like, oh god, people are looking at me. I hate being perceived, which I realize is a ridiculous thing to say as somebody who is like, hi guys, Nina Tame here. But I'm doing that on my phone.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always like there's a part of me that's sort of, you know, it's that voice that's like, everybody thinks you're a dickhead. Everyone's following you because you're a dickhead. And I have to be like, actually, it's probably just some people that think I'm a dickhead. Some people definitely like me. Um,
If
but
they
it's like,
do, bloody hell.
so it's having like, yeah, I think it's not like, I find it surprising still when people say like a nice thing about me. I'm like, really? That's
Oh,
really nice and weird. Like, sometimes I look at Jason, I think, what are you doing? So yeah, I think it shows up for me as a self-esteem thing. I've got
yeah.
pretty bad I can't even say it. Executive dysfunction. There you go. I reckon I've possibly got ADHD, which I always feel like when I say it, I'm like, oh yeah, everybody thinks I've got ADHD. But definitely got a lot of stuff going on. So, but as it just sort of, I know when to, like, I really pushed myself last year and sort of doing stuff for the first time. But there is also stuff that I say, actually, do you know what? I would get through it. I know I would, but I would have to, you know, sort of manage myself so much through this situation that, is it worth it? So
Yeah.
I kind of know when to say no to stuff and when just to let myself be and say, actually, I'm not going to put myself in that situation. So I think it's sort of anxiety based mainly.
Yeah.
um but I'm much better at naming it and sort of, yeah, talking myself. I managed to do some sort of stuff last year that I sort of thought I wouldn't be able to. So yeah, it's interesting, Jem.
Well, so the perception side was actually going to be the last part. So this
Oh,
is all come
seamless.
together pretty well. Because I hate being perceived too. Like I say to my mum, like, I wish I wasn't as observational as I am because I see every little body language. I know when someone's about to come and say something to me. I know when that group of lads, is nudging and
Mm.
laughing, and I know, you're so observant to the point where you can't relax. But then I know other disabled people who they're like, "Oh, what? I didn't even notice."
Mm.
So, what have you got any tips for people like me who really struggle with being perceived? Have you learned anything along the way?
Nothing. Um, no, see, I think being out in public, it depends. Like I was saying to you earlier before we got on this, that I've kind of drawn a hard line on being on the bus.
Yeah,
And I think part of that is to do with being perceived as well, because there's something about being on the train, and I know I can kind of just, it's not long between stops. I could get off, I could pop in the disabled loo if I really needed to. If I
yeah,
felt unwell, if I suddenly felt unwell, which seems to be a fear that all the time, I'm just going to suddenly feel a little bit unwell. But a bus is like, oh, the thought of stopping it, having everyone looking at you while the ramp's all like beep, beep. No, not a
yeah. I
fan.
get that.
So there are still points in my real life where I'm, just no to it. But I think in general, I suppose if I'm out on my own, I've got music on anyway, because there's
Mm,
something about being out and having music in my ears that just turns me into just, I'm so happy and I just don't care who's around me. I'm just like singing, it's like la la la. And the rest of the time, like whoever I'm with, I suppose I've just got better at just zoning it out.
yeah,
Like you're aware it's going on. Sometimes I'm not. I think I've got good at that stare that you can do where
yeah,
you're looking but you're not looking at all.
yeah.
I think it's just for me, it's like I feel it constantly. Um,
Same.
but sometimes I'll be like, do you know what? I look fucking great. Yep, they're just staring because look at me. I'm whizzing along. I'm happy. I've got, and I can kind of tell myself that with a bit
Yeah,
of I can almost, if I'm in the right frame of mind, it's like, isn't this all silly? Aren't they silly? Like, aren't they
yeah,
just silly for feeling like this about me? Like, aren't they missing out on all the joy of what like disability is?
yeah,
I wrote a thing today about how all strangers want to know is about the medical, and that's all they see as is the medical,
yeah.
when like the medical is such a small part of disability.
Mm,
And I would chew somebody's ear off about like beautiful universal design, or mobility aids, or famous disabled people, or brilliant disabled characters. Like there's so much disability to talk about and to be in love with, and I just think, oh, isn't it silly, because they're all just really missing out. They just don't get that I'm actually out having a lovely time.
yeah. We've
So I
got so
suppose,
many funny stories.
exactly, very entertaining to know.
Yeah,
But yeah, if anyone's got any tips on how to survive being perceived online, because yeah, how can, still trying to work out how I can have the big account but not be perceived by anyone.
oh God, I mean, that is a tricky one to end on because I've got no idea, but maybe people can let us know.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Answers on a postcard and all
Yeah.
that.
Final question for you, Nina.
Yes,
What
Jen.
in a dream world, no
Mm-hmm.
barriers,
Mm-hmm.
no, life is just really accessible, no one's ableist. What would you like people's first impression of you to be without the ableism?
um I think that I don't know. I think I want them to think, shit, it's like a really cool girl. Um,
Yes.
that's really bad. Um, I don't know. I'm always well into if people think I'm funny. So can somebody's first impression, they just think I'm really funny and smart. That is
Yeah.
what I would want.
Yes.
Funny and smart.
But you are. That's kind of because I was thinking about this question and I was like, if we took the barriers away, how do you see yourself and how do you want people to see you? That is who you are, isn't it?
That's very sweet. I really struggle because I'm like come from kind of like working class background and missed out loads of school. So it's kind of, I think I left school with like one GCSE. So I've got kind of a slight complex about people thinking that and I know stupid is an ableist term in itself, but it's definitely a complex of mine that I feel like I'm not educated and that I get my words mixed up sometimes. And yeah, I think I get a bit like, oh, what if people just think I'm really like, what if people hear because actually they're all laughing at me? That's one of my like big ones. What if everybody is just laughing at me? I shouldn't be on the internet, should I? I need to yeah, sort my life out and throw my phone
This,
away.
your
Um
brain must be exhausted.
yeah, it's a tiring place. No, it's okay. It's all right.
No,
Sometimes it is.
yeah,
It's yeah, it's I'm having a lovely time on the internet at the minute, so it's yeah, it's
you're
fine.
smashing it. You honestly, yeah. Well, I think you're great, and as I said, the disabled community is anti. You're all supporting us, and I hope that you feel that love that that you give everyone else.
That's really sweet. Thank you. I'm perimenopausal. That's what it is, Jem. It's the perimenopause is making me doubt myself so much. You got all this to look forward to in another 10 or so years.
Oh, I've heard about this. I'm not here for it.
No, I just tell it to piss off.
Yeah. Well, we did got SAD and arthritis and all that. Like,
Oh,
winter's bad enough as it is.
yeah, SAD is the worst.
Really bad.
I've got my little sad lamp. I'm not
Yeah,
sure
so
that helpful.
I burn my retinas with it,
Uh,
hoping that like it's gonna do something. I mean, I
please.
feel like it's doing something, but maybe it's harming me.
I'm like that with my vitamin D gummies. I'm just like popping four, like, yes, Sunny, it's
This is
fine.
helping, I
Haven't
think.
haven't left the house in 2 weeks, but it's fine because I've got 4 vitamin Ds.
Yes.
No
Oh
scurvy
God.
for me. Oh, thank you for having me on, Jem.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nina.